Thanks, Russ. You made a real mess of that, didn't you?
Okay, see, this is what happens when you have kids, though. You come prepared. I've got my lights too first.
Yeah, we are kids.
I'm afraid of busting out wet wipes in this group of people.
Cheers, folks.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Please join us in welcoming John McCrea and Russ Braun here to Baltimore. This is an absolute pleasure to have you.
Cheers, Russ.
Cheers. So, John, this is this is your second time to Baltimore? Did we catch you the first time in 2016, or is it your third?
I think it might be my third.
Might
I think
be
it might.
your
I think it might be my third. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, talking to this. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. And then Russ, this is your debut at Baltimore.
This is my first.
Brother,
Yes.
it's great to have both of you here.
Yeah, popping your cherry.
Popping cherry. I know that you guys have worked a lot with Garth, and quite frankly, I don't want to lead this off by talking about Garth. You both have been in the business for just shy of about 3 decades.
I don't want to talk about it.
You both have such different backgrounds, so John, why don't you start out with how you came into art, and then we'll move on to Russ, because you're sitting close to me, and then Russ can go second.
Fair
Well, I
enough.
met Garth and we worked together.
Go ahead. You poopy head you. There's kids here, so no swearing, it seems. This is like an issue of Hitman where you have to desperately not swear all the way through it. This is it's going to be tough. So if I see beads of sweat running down my brow, it's because of that. My mum and dad bought me a copy of Avengers #8 when I was young, and I fell in love with the medium right there, and I turned to them and went, that's what I'm going to do when I grew up. And I was 4 at the time.
Oh, wow.
So I just put my blinkers on and drew comics, drove my parents to distraction, because, you know, I grew up in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and why the hell is somebody from Belfast, Northern Ireland going to end up working in American comics? I got to 18 or 19, dropped out of art college, because it was crap. My friend and I opened Belfast's first comic shop, Dark Horizons, in the back of Good Vibrations Records. If anybody's seen the movie Good Vibes, about Terry Hooley, Belfast punk guru, I used to buy my records off Terry, my punk records, and then Terry let me open my shop in the back of his shop. And one of our customers was a guy called Garth Ennis, and he would come in and buy Cerebus and concrete every month. That's what Garth was into, Cerebus and concrete, but very good taste, I've got to admit. Grudgingly, I'm going to admit that. And you know, from there, he knew I was drawing stuff, some comics. I've done it again. I've upset the kid. He's fine. Yeah, he knew everybody who came into the shop who had aspirations of being a writer knew that I was breaking into comics. I'd done some little bits and pieces for British Marvel and for 2000 AD. Garth pitched me this thing called Troubled Souls by 2 lads in Northern Ireland during the Troubles and how it affected them. 2000 seemed to like it. Bought it off us, and there you go. That's me.
That was
in a nutshell.
And so you taught yourself, and you started out, it was 96 pages of painted work?
It was, yes. It was. I'd never painted in my life. I always just wanted to draw American comics, black and white American comics, so I had zero interest in painting. But there was this, you know, Kent Williams, Bill Sienkiewicz, all those guys, Simon Bisley had created this need for painted comics. So I had to learn how to paint on the job. And yeah, I look back at Troubled Souls, and it's an exercise in pulling teeth. I think, you know, you can see me sort of agonizingly improve as I go along, as each issue came out or as the book progresses. And I've painted a whole lot of comics, maybe 500 pages worth of comics, and I've hated every minute of it. So when I went to DC, it was just like, oh my God, at long last I can stop painting comics. And Archie Goodwin gave me a prestige format, fully painted comic to do. First thing I did, I was just like, oh God! I put a gun to my head and didn't shoot. Didn't kill myself. So yeah, but once I got that done, I was no more painting. No more painting. And never again.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Happy days.
And Russ, you're a New York native and went to art school in New York.
So I'm not self-taught.
Well, I'm just saying.
Everyone is self-taught. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
It's just whether you're guided or not by anybody.
And
I had a lot of great guides along the way.
Joe Orlando.
Joe Orlando
Wow,
was
wow.
my teacher. Well, I started out where you did. Like, got a Spider-Man comic when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And decided, just like you, that I'm going to do this for a living. I saw the Spider-Man cartoon, the Ralph Bakshi cartoon, 67. And then I said, well, where can I get this stuff? And they're like, oh, this is comic books. My dad was like Mad Magazine, big EC Comics guy. So he had like the John Severin, Two-Fisted Tales and stuff like that.
Nice.
That his father had thrown out. His whole locker full of like the original run of Mad from 1 through like everything.
What,
Just
his dad
when
took
he
them
moved
all?
out, put it out on the street, gone. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so yeah, did the whole thing. Spider-Man was my guy. Grew up in Queens, like I am Spider-Man kind of thing.
Right.
And,
We are all Spider-Man.
but then going
Aren't we?
through
That's what I hear.
going through that stuff, you get to art college and you realize, okay, now it's time to put away comics and you get to like mature things and be like capital A artist. And although Joe Orlando wrote my recommendation to get into art college, he was into. My mother met his wife in a supermarket, and said, oh, well, could you look at Russell's work sometime? No. And I went up there, terrified to see Joe Orlando. And, if you guys don't know who Joe Orlando is, he was worked on like the original Mad magazine. Him and Wally Wood were like partners in crime for the longest time.
And the pirate story in Watchmen.
Yeah, exactly, very good.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
And the
Pirate
pirate story in Watchmen.
That's interesting.
Not,
Alan Moore was
not
a huge-
really.
a huge,
Not really.
It is.
Basically,
For nerds, it is.
Yeah, that's
nerds.
important.
We're all nerds.
We are at a comic
Yeah, I
convention.
know.
That is very important.
But the review I got from Joe was great. But at first he was looking through my artwork, and he wasn't saying anything at all. He was just smiling, which I thought was a good sign. Dead silent. And he looked up and he saw that I had like this terrified look at me. He's like, no, it's good, it's good. You know? He's like, the last guy that was sitting where you were sitting, I'll tell you the review I gave him. I looked at his stuff and I said, how did you get here? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, how did you physically get here? He's like, I drove. It's like, oh yeah, you got your own car. He's like, do you pump your own gas? And he said, yeah. He's like, you ever think about doing that for a living? So that was the review. And so I got off pretty good compared to that guy. But anyway, so I went to art college with Joe and decided then, like the same stuff you're talking about, Sienkiewicz, and I mean, all this stuff, this is like mid-'80s, all this great stuff was coming out in comics. And I'm like, when I'm deciding to leave comics for like a mature illustration career or whatever. And I said, no, comics is like a high art medium now. Beyond like, I still would give me a Spider-Man comic or something, I'd have been happy. But kept going with that, and Joe Orlando said, come up, we'll get you some work sometime. And I went up to DC and kind of never looked back, like 1989.
That's when I broke in. 89. On the money.
That's wild.
There you go.
That's
Cheers,
wild.
that was it.
That's 30 years for both of you then.
Yeah.
You don't look at it at all.
And yet I'm only 32 years old. Benjamin Button.
So
Got a good laugh.
was it?
Nice.
It was the Demon and Legends of Dark Knight were the DC comics that you guys broke in on, or?
That was the biggest one for me. Demon was your first one?
Well, I did that Archie
Yeah.
edited Streets with James Hudnall. With James, God rest his soul. Yeah, well.
I got to meet him. He spoke very fondly of you.
Well, he was mad as a bag of lorries, but you know. He was, but I loved James. I did love him. He was nuts. He moved to Vegas so that because the whores were cheaper. That's what he said. I mean, why'd you move to Vegas? The whores are cheaper. Gotta have your priorities right, Jim. You gotta have your priorities right. That's class. Your class.
I want to toast James with that.
Yeah. You know, it's like, there you go, Jim. So yeah, that was my first gig, and then, but you know, the Demon was the proper one.
Yeah, my first gig was actually a comic called Ford Fairlane. Andrew Dice Clay movie. We did the prequel, like 70s disco era story. And I was supposed to just do designs, like character designs.
Through Dice Clay.
I remember that
Yeah.
name.
He existed, didn't he?
Yeah.
What a
Hickory
world.
Dickory Dock and blah, blah, blah.
Has not aged well.
But yeah, the movie was supposed to be his launching pad for like a huge movie star career. And he had talent, you know, but I guess there were all kinds of controversies around him, more behind the scenes stuff, and the movie kind of tanked. It really wasn't that bad, But the who's who of people I got to work with on my first comic, like Carmine Infantino did layouts for my pencils.
Wow.
And we had to draw 32 pages in 2 weeks. So I would get 6 pages from him at his apartment one day, and then I would go back and
You
draw
went to
over.
Carmine's apartment.
Carmine would not step foot on DC property, so you had to go to him. And he lived pretty close to there, so.
Well, this is New York.
Nice,
and,
perfect.
New York City, yeah. So
and I'm imagining what Marvel and DC both had their headquarters there at
Yeah.
that time frame. So that
this
that
is
must
at the
have been
time
like
when
every-
DC had their headquarters were on Fifth Avenue at 666 Fifth Avenue.
Coincidence. That's just a random coincidence.
Yeah, yeah. I was drawing the demon for them.
So Joe would send
They
me
figured it
over
out.
to Carmine's, and I'd pick up the pages and draw them. And, then it came back in, it would be inked by either Frank Springer or Don Heck. They split the pages out like that.
Wow.
Who, yeah. So it's like, okay, I'll learn how to draw comics from the actual guys who created all the comics I ever read.
That's
John,
quite a team up.
I'm sorry. When you were doing Hitman, you had, was it Gary Frank was your inker?
No, Gary Leach.
Gary Leach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Don't worry
But you were
about it.
doing like 2 books a month, you were saying in the last panel that we had.
Yeah,
Back in the day.
Yeah, I was doing 2.5 books a month, actually. 2.5 books a month I could manage back then. But I was mainly penciling and some assorted covers. But I was young and dumb, you know. Yeah, it's just insane. I look at that now. It's meant that you think when you're younger that comics will get easier as you go along.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get used to drawing. You'll figure out that the head goes on the neck and
Yeah.
the neck goes on the shoulders and stuff like that. You know, get good at drawing, but it just gets harder
Yeah.
and you get slower.
And they'll always
Why?
They'll always be able to draw the character exactly to recognize the character each time.
Sure.
It's like, that's the same guy. It's like, that's not the guy at all. I
Absolutely.
gotta fix that.
Yeah.
I used to hate when I go to the comic shop and get that half comic book though, where you read it and you like,
Yeah, I know. I'm
What
sorry
do you
about
mean?
that. I did
They're
2.5
2.5
comics a month.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're
I'm
reading
picking
more.
up what you're putting down.
Page 10
You guys are great.
I know.
You guys
I did that for you, Russ.
You guys have a really good point. When you're drawing something over and over again, like I work with bikes, it's like a physical job. You move around the bike, you adjust the bolt, and frankly I could fall asleep and probably do it because it's like muscle memory.
Okay.
But every single time you guys draw something, it's in a different pose, it's from a different light, it's a different scene. Like, do you develop a muscle memory for it, or is it every time you have to really think about it?
Well, for certain things, yeah, I think you have a muscle memory, but you've always, well, I mean, most of us want to push yourselves a bit. You don't want to, you find yourself slipping into a formula, and you know, you can see it on artists like, well, Steve Dillon is a perfect example of the guy who's got the formula just nailed down. Steve, I went to Steve's house one time. There was a whole crew of us went down to Steve's, and he was working on Animal Man at the time for DC, and he needed to finish, like, I think he had to pencil 20 pages or something like that. And so he went to the lavatory for a shit and came out and he penciled 20 pages. It was unbelievable. It was just like, what? He just went in with a stack of DC artboard and a desire to do good. And he came out with 20 pages of Animal Man pencil. Wasn't the greatest work he'd ever done. Told the story. Steve was just like, yeah, that was, you know, I mean, admittedly, he was in there for about an hour or something. It was, I believe, a number 2. So, yeah, but, you know, you're just like, what the what in what?
Bars.
Holy Jesus, Steve. It's just unbelievable. It's like, right, pub. And you're like, ah, right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and Steve's another connection between the two of us too.
Sure.
He was the first guy I met in comics. I said I've met all these legendary guys. Steve was the first guy I met. He came over with Garth for a convention in '93, I think it was. Who just treated me like one of the guys. You know, it wasn't like, here, kid, what you're doing wrong is this, what you're doing wrong is this. And I talked to him about comics a lot, but he was like just the greatest guy, the nicest guy in the world, and just
Yeah, he was.
you know, just like, hey, let's go we'll have a beer and we'll talk about it.
Sure.
And you know, he didn't know me from anybody. Just sat down. You know, great guy. So
Yeah.
I got to meet him 3 times.
Steve.
see,
And
Oh,
he was,
miss him.
I got to meet him 3 times. He was without a doubt every time just very pleasant, very kind, very patient. He was signing at Heroes once,
Yeah.
and everybody was getting Jesse or Logan because he was working in Origins with Daniel Way. And I said, could I get the Zippo from Preacher? And I got this relaxed smile out. I was like, yes, yes. And I would love to take a break from this. Let's do it. And he nailed it. He did a wonderful job. I didn't, you know, Tuesday is October 20th. It's 3 years.
Yep.
Is there anything that you wish people spoke about more when they remembered Steve?
People.
Any anecdote that you can, like, that story was awesome. You know, it's,
Well, it means there's a number of pub-based anecdotes around Steve, but you know, I think that one's a pretty good one.
No,
You got one?
No, I mean, there's plenty of them, but
Yeah.
the ones I remember.
Exactly.
I met those guys because, and this is I guess, apocryphal according to some DC guys, because I wasn't supposed to say this, but when Garth and Steve came over, they put the editors through their paces, going out like long nights.
Sure.
I was a freelancer who was local, so I'd be in town. I would just come down there, walk down to the offices. And it was either, I won't even name their names. Two editors said to me, it's the third night, we can't do it. Would you take them out if we give you the DC credit card? And I was like, sure.
Really?
You know, and it's pretty much like, I'd met them in the offices a couple of days before, but then we just went to the Irish pub.
Of
You know,
course.
It was just,
The Blarney Stone, was it?
But, no, it was,
No, it was the
just
Irish.
The Irish pub was.
This was pre-Foley's.
And yeah.
Garth and Steve's taste.
So and it ended up being like
shit.
Well, it was just
apologize,
the cheapest,
Every time it was like, Foley's, oh Christ.
cheapest Irish pub you can find.
Yeah.
McNally's.
Foley's is the worst.
there's no Danny Boy.
Foley's really, I mean, dear God, do yourselves all a favor and never go to Foley's. You know, you might run
It's
into
right
car.
behind the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've drank in that for 2 years in a row with you guys, and I kind of forgot that detail.
Yeah,
it's right across the
yeah.
street.
Well, that'll be the drink.
Damn it.
But yeah, no, so many times with Garth and Steve like that. So, and I spent more time with Steve because Garth was being wined and dined by the editors, and Steve wanted no part of that. Just let's go have a drink and wait for him. So 3 or 4 hours later, they would show up, and Garth would show up, and we'd have a good time.
Sure.
But,
I don't know the Jesse and Jody fight or any of the Texas scenery. I don't know what I like most from Steve, but I mean, Preacher just, it stands the test of time stuff.
Yeah.
It's so clean, so
This is
beautiful.
my favorite work of theirs, for sure.
I mean, I'm a sucker for Steve's earlier work. I gotta say, when he was working for Warrior, which is a British magazine doing Axel Press Button, and some of his dread work, well, all of his dread work, but you know, some of his stuff, when he was really, Steve was really trying. I mean, the guy could just draw. I mean, he was a genius.
Self-taught at 16.
I mean, I remember
16
Goose-
started.
Yeah, it started at 16. Yeah, his first published work was Hulk Weekly. I remember going to the corner shop to pick up my copy of Hulk Weekly #1. I was 11. Steve was 15, and he was in it. And it's just like 15, actually, when he snuck
Well,
in.
that's the same thing with
It's
you.
like, what the hell?
He started to go to art college, and he was like, well, why am I going to go if I'm already doing the job?
Sure,
So
sure.
why go to the school if you've got the job you want
Yeah.
the school for? Stay in school, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Unless you're Steve fucking Dillon.
Yeah, no, just,
They don't want
and
$4 million
not many of
bet.
us are. I remember an interview with Alan Davis, where the interviewer asked Alan Davis, who was your favorite artist? And he went, Steve Dillon. And the artist, and the interviewer was like, well, that's really surprising. I mean, you would think, you know, it would be like Neil Adams or something. And Alan just said, minimum effort, maximum output. And that was Steve. Minimum effort, maximum output. And Alan admired the shit out of that. So yeah.
And a storytelling genius.
Oh God.
Well, welcome to the Steve Dillon panel, everybody.
I know. Hey, I'd rather talk about Steve than me.
Me too.
Go on.
But no, he was a storytelling master. He could just like, and he said he had like a formula down for his faces,
Sure.
but then just the slightest change, like the tweak of an eyebrow.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's that expression that Garth wanted. You know, Garth is like, he'll say, I need 3 expressions on this guy's face at once, so have fun with that. You know?
Garth got into writing, he shrugs. And how the hell do you draw a shrug in comics? Come on, Garth. Give us a break here. How do you draw that? I don't understand. What, like seven frames? the bionic shrug?
Now you're into
Oh,
my
what
Disney
the hell?
days with the slow ins and the shit.
Oh, God, of course you worked for Disney.
When you took a break from comics in the mid-90s
Yeah.
to do 7 years at Disney with Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, and
bunch of-
Tarzan. And
I'm gonna stop you for
Whoa.
a second. Mulan's the greatest work of art ever done in Disney movies in history.
Mulan,
I love Mulan.
looking back, I'm probably proudest of Mulan as a movie. I liked working on Lilo and Stitch the best because I was on Jumbo, so Jumbo was just a lot of fun to draw. But no, that was when, I mean, I took a break from comics when comics
didn't
took a
do
break
it.
from me, maybe, either way. But no, the first chop at the career was like 89 through 96. And it was just kind of like, I wasn't where I wanted to be. Work was slowing down. I was working on a big graphic novel with Jamie Delano. And the whole division fell apart by the time I was almost done with it at Paradox Press.
Oh, Paradox.
They did Road to Perdition and other things that became big movies.
Who was the boss? Who was that?
Andy Helfer.
That was Hal
Yeah.
Helfer, wasn't it? It
My
was
good
Andy.
buddy. So.
Yeah, I love Andy.
And he'd gotten me to work with Jose on the Legends of the Dark Knight stuff. But, no, so I left and I went to Disney. But Disney was just like attaching electrodes to your hand and using your hand, not your mind, not your creativity at all. It was like you go in there, draw everything exactly like everybody else draws it. And the only thing I took out of it, though, was that discipline that I brought back to my own artwork. So now I draw almost exclusively just with pencil, and I shoot for ink on that, instead of drawing it 2 or 3 times. That's 2 or 3 times to get it wrong. You know, your first rough sketch is probably your best drawing. Then you tighten up the pencils, then you ink on top of it to be, retentive about getting it perfect. And by the time it's perfect, it's dead.
Yeah.
So the characters are all just frozen. So I can keep a little bit looser now because of that Disney stuff. So at least there's that.
that is awesome.
The mice gave you something.
Yeah. They called it Mauschwitz.
Mice.
Wow. I know.
That's brutal, but I believe it.
So I remember with our panel, John, you gotta hate what you do or you don't get any better. And
Yes, yes, that's true, and I do,
With-
generally.
Russ, we're talking with like the discipline style. I know a lot of folks are digital. Have you guys changed how you've been doing business in the last 30 years? Is it just simple pencil paper and I'm going to stick with that? Is it pencil paper scan, Photoshop, edit, draw digitally?
It's a combination for me. You too?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to mix it up with, but I'm not a digital guy. I'm a computer moron, so it's, I can use Photoshop to kind of tweak a bit, but anytime anything falls out of my comfort zone or something goes wrong, I'm on the phone to some smart person going, help!
Yeah,
What the hell's going on here?
Almost all the drawing is done,
Yeah.
analog and then scanned in, and then I do stuff with it in the computer. But I don't have a Cintiq. I don't work on a tablet. I want to try that at some point, but it's like old dogs, new tricks kind of thing. But no, I work in a really crazy way. I take all the script, I take each panel and I kind of break it down in my head. I do a little thumbnail on the sheet, and that's my only thumbnail on the actual script page.
Yeah, I do that too.
Then I start drawing the expressions and the poses I want. So I draw each panel like separately in a sketchbook without worrying about size, positioning, whatever. Just kind of like the angle I want. Then I scan all the sketches in and build my layout in Photoshop. So I zoom in, zoom out. Like I've done a whole drawing of like a full character, like head to toe. Realize I only need their eyes. And I'll just zoom in on the eyes, drop it in there. That's the layout. Print that out to size, throw it in the light box, and do my finished pencil rendering drawing. And that's my finish. Scan it back in, darken it up, send it to the companies and tell them, yeah, it's inked. Get paid for pencils and inks. But it's still like 3 layers, but it would normally be more. I would then take that and ink it on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's too much work. So,
Yeah, that sounds like exactly like my process. Maybe not quite breaking it down into all the individual panels, but I do draw stuff like willy-nilly and then assemble it on Photoshop. But once I've assembled all my roughs, I just go straight in and ink. Instead of penciling, I just go straight in and ink and, make like balls of it. So, yeah, and then have to redraw stuff all the time.
well, you guys are obviously here because you've seen some of our work, but your new inking style, like the way you've been working with ink is really amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Cheers.
It's like, it's still you. It's a growth. It's amazing kind of like pattern and texture that you're using. So I'm a huge fan. I've always been a big
on
fan.
the tables.
But no,
Thank
it's
you, man.
really, it's really
I appreciate
really cool.
that.
So,
Yeah. I'm no Steve Dillon, but thank you.
no one is.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
But yeah, going right to ink on that, because that's what Steve did too. Is he we said pencil pages when you said 20 pencil pages. Steve's pencils were kind of like, just like
Circles.
guides about
Real
where
light.
he wants things.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he would just take his pen, go,
Yeah.
draw like
I
a
know.
perfect profile, and
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Steve always had things that he hated drawing though. One of the dogs, horses, cats, any
Did
animal.
Dogwelder
And-
have anything to do with that then?
Yeah, maybe.
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 No,
We can
anything-
come back to that.
anything
I
he
mean,
had
stick
to-
with where you're going.
Anything
but
he had to reference. I mean, you got to remember,
Maybe.
when we're talking about, we started in the days when there was not the internet to go Google search your
God, that
stuff.
old.
It was like, I used to go to the New York Library picture collection. I had to draw an Animal Man issue where Animal Man like took over Washington D.C. It was like all this Capitol building, Washington Monument. I had to figure out where these things were in relation to each other too. And
wow.
internet would be like, that's like a half a day's Google search, you know? This was
I'm
like,
going to interrupt you right now because I think it's season 5 of The Walking Dead. They're driving to Alexandria, Virginia, which is our backyard, and they're going through the mountains, and you see the Washington Monument. I'm like, no, they haven't learned that lesson either, because 1 and 2 don't equal 3.
well, that is the comic artist's job too, is to try and make it somewhat believable, suspend disbelief a little bit.
Sure.
Don't draw pine trees in the middle of New York City, like in the background, just because you want to cover up something. You know? Draw a building. You know?
Yeah.
But
Draw some crime.
but yeah,
Crime.
Steve didn't. Yeah, just random crime.
Yeah.
But Steve liked to just make things up out of his head because it's faster.
Yeah.
And we both like that too. But you got to use your photo references. Like if you're going to draw cars, have photo reference. You know,
Really?
stuff
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
But the more they ask you to draw that's photo reference, the more go to pain in the butt it is.
Yeah.
Or the ass.
Yes.
He's okay.
The,
He's heard that 500-600
yeah.
times by now.
Steve did that Preacher Told in the Saddle issue, which was all about horses, and I inked it, and Steve basically said, John, would you draw all the horses? You know, I just don't want to, you know, so I would get these pencils, and there would be Jesse on a horse, except that the horse was just a circle. And I would then come in and draw the horse
There were a
in.
lot of horses in that issue.
There were a lot of horses, yeah, absolutely.
But you inked over his pencils for that one, because your name's on the trade, and I look, when I
That was me
took a
inking it.
look at that a couple months
Yeah.
later after I bought it, I was like, this really looks more like John, but that's...
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go
Right.
that
Not-
far.
not saying anything
I wouldn't go
against
that
Steve.
far.
No, of
No,
course
no,
not.
it's still Steve. But yeah, I mean, I learned it. I mean, I did it because, well, I suppose I wanted some preacher money. But you know, I also did it because I was going to learn a bit from inking Steve, and I did. You know, you just can't not learn from working over his stuff and really getting deep into what he's doing. But also, yeah, having to do the horses for him was funny. And I knew that when he did the big tank battle in the valley in Preacher, he got, who the hell did he get? He got somebody else to draw the tanks. Glenn Dillon. I think it was Glenn. He got his brother. He got his brother to draw the tanks in the, you know, because he's just like, oh, fuck. So Glenn drew all those. Yeah. So.
And I'm sure Garth would have been more picky about the tanks than the horses.
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That's not a, you know, palmy of whatever the hell it was.
It was
I've got the Panzer, but it's the wrong year.
I know. I will never do another war comic with Garth. Ever.
that was a joke in an issue of Dick's, where you two were written into the story. And then I know in the afterward for Fury My War Gone By with Garan Parlov pencils, they made a note that said Garan did great, but in this panel, this helicopter has 4 propellers and it needs to have 3 propellers. And what's it like doing a war book with Garth when you already have an editor involved in the process and you get what appears to be editor number 2?
Can we be fair that there's really no editor when you're working with Garth?
Yeah,
Garth's the editor.
that's pretty much right.
Sorry, editors, you're,
I'm
Yeah.
you're obsolete.
It's true.
But go ahead.
Oh, I'm not saying anything. No, I mean, this might go on the internet and then Garth might watch it. It's lovely.
No,
It's lovely.
Garth-
He's my best pal.
It's so much better working with Garth because you don't have the 2 masters to follow. It's just what Garth wants is what you do. The editors are just kind of
In
like
life and in
just
art.
no. The editors are just kind of like, yeah, we've read the script, we know it's perfect, you know. So now just make him happy.
Yeah.
But
In
no,
life and in art.
it's things like that, like where the war comics. I did the Night Witches with Garth,
Oh, yes.
Battlefields, which was great. I loved it, and you know this is the one he cares about.
Sure.
You know, he cares about most of it, but the war stories are the ones he really puts his heart into. So when he asks you for a change in that, it's because it's important, you know, and because you know there's going to be that one person out there like, this is the wrong, this is a 24B when it's supposed to be 24C. And you're like, all right, sorry.
You've seen them, not
That's
to
really
be,
nervous stuff.
but his,
Sorry.
you saw the letter that he sent into 2000 AD.
Yes.
Like, when he
Oh,
was
that's so
13,
correct.
right?
It wasn't 2000, it was like Battle or something
Battle.
like that, yeah. Or
This tank is
Warlord.
this, but it should have reflected this tank,
Exactly.
and you put in the wrong
Yeah.
style tank and have a runaway son.
When you do your due diligence on it and you still get it wrong, it's like it's the internet's fault. So it's like I drew these planes, Russian planes for the first series, and he says you've got the right plane, but it's the wrong model, it's the wrong intake on the front. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, you're right. I looked it up on the reference searches, but they said that it was the P40B when it was supposed to be the P40A or whatever. So, and it was noticeably, I saw the difference once he told me about it, so I made sure to make the fix. But yeah, is it tedious? Yes, but no, it's right, and you want to get it right, and especially for stuff like that. The fans of war comics are the kind of fans that you want to have. I mean, they're the ones that love comics for comics, not just like, oh, this one's going to sell 1 million copies, so I want 50 versions of
The
foil
informal
stamp
stock
cover or
market
whatever,
that
so.
doesn't really
Yeah.
work out that well.
Yeah. When, by the time I was doing The Boys with Garth, and I had been teaching, and one of my students, a guy called Keith Burns, was just this incredible war nut and aviation artist. And so I got Keith in and I did a Steve on him, where anytime there was a plane or a tank, I just went, Keith, draw a plane or a tank, the right one preferably, you know. And I just, so loads of times I just draw, like the panel would be this, and I would draw this tiny figure here, and go, tank battle here, and Keith would just draw all the tanks and everything, and I'd just be like, cash the check.
Here's a really fun bit.
I didn't pay Keith. I did pay.
that's
you know,
important. That
I
is
thought
important.
I thought it was fair to pay him.
He's done some great painted
Not much.
comics with it.
Did he do Out of the Blue with him? Am I
Yeah.
thinking the right? Yeah, was it?
Keith's a phenomenal artist. He's
But now
incredible.
I thought you were the one doing that for me on, there's one issue of the Boys that was an oversized issue, Boys 65.
65.
All right.
And I didn't even know they were taking some pages away from me, because it was like the deadlines were crazy. I came in on the Boys like, it was already in doom space when I was doing it, so, like, we need this one in 2 weeks, can you do it?
Someone, sure. Who else is credited for art in that one? Because it's the two of you. I thought there was a third person.
Probably Keith, because it's all these planes, so.
There's a lot of
they said-
planes.
Yeah, there's a lot
they
of,
were like,
uh,
well,
There
we
were a
kinda-
lot of blank
we
spaces
took-
in my artwork.
We figured we'd take the pages away from you that were tech heavy and
Keith
give those
Burns.
to John.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I already laid out 2 of those, but that's fine.
I
And,
wa-
and then now I was gonna give you all these kudos and thanks for saving my butt on that issue.
I did save your butt. By finding a guy who could save my butt.
I did. It's a great issue too. It's
a good one.
It's like one of my favorite ones of the whole run.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's
It
the
kicks
big
off
reveals of everything actually.
Early warning and control. And AWACS is in fiction, and that's in the Air Force. What I did for my branch of the service, and that just blew my F-word mind. That was so neat.
Well held there, by the
Thank
way.
you, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, cheers,
Do we have
cheers,
any,
Keith Burns.
any,
on that.
yeah, Keith Burns, Keith Burns.
I'm not going to drink the Keith.
Okay.
I'm the boss there.
Do we have any lawyers here?
Uh-oh.
Great, outstanding, cool, all right. This did not happen, internet. 65, it looks like the head of Kyle Rayner is being blown up by all the jets that are coming in. And you look through older issues in Soldier Boy's funeral, and there's a Viking with a particular headpiece and red cape. And it looks like somebody that could be Thor. Well, it hurts, I'm not sure. And then, you know, when you go into the Sixpack and Dogwelder, Hard-Travelin Heroez, there's a buzz-cutted, goateed, green hoodie, coat guy walking around in Noonan's. It looks an awful lot like somebody that I could name.
That one, yeah.
That one,
For you.
that was fun. When it comes to Easter eggs, I know Eric asked you about soapy suds with the last panel and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
What stuff do you guys like to hide? Russ, you had an interview in the script details, I think, the freedom that the artist gets to have with all the background stuff, so it's not just two people talking, but it's two people talking in a restaurant.
Yeah, incidental detail. That's the Jose
Incidental
Luis
details.
Garcia Lopez.
Right.
Where it's like, I was drawing the Batman stuff. I was already working over layouts by Trevor Von Eden, so I was adding all I could, that was my own stuff. And then Jose would take what we both did and make it insane, make it actually work. So doing that taught me how to do the job. I mean, more than anything else. And we would sit down in the offices and he would show me why he did it. He's a very soft-spoken, incredible gentleman. And but there's a scene where in the first issue of Batman Venom where there are these two thugs that are in this like seedy hotel room, and I drew like perfect perspective, which is what I cared about. Like, the hotel room was in proper perspective. He's like, but now it feels like a shoebox, not like an actual room. So he put things in like little, like they would have like empty pizza boxes and crushed beer cans and a nudie calendar on the wall. He said it's incidental details that make it feel like there's a story here, not just properly drawn perspective. And I've never forgotten that. That's like one of the lessons I took from him. So,
Yeah, that's huge.
and that gives you a chance to put Easter eggs in there. So little stuff.
Sure.
And I love that. That's like, especially working with Garth, like things in the boys. You've got, you know, I have all these books in the background, or like little comic books laying on the floor. I get to make up these characters just for fun.
Oh, that was the one that-
Payback and oh yeah, well we
Shitfoot?
probably shouldn't go into Shitfoot, but
And then we'll ignore Shitfoot.
but
Okay.
That sounds like a pretty good comic.
Shitfoot was my take on Sweet Tooth, so I'll admit it. And the legend dies on pretty much, like it's quite on his face.
Yeah.
I put it where I thought Red Balloons were going to cover it, right there. I'd had a nightmare about it before, that I'd done like a parody of Sweet Tooth called Shitfoot, and that the comics press was talking to me only about that and ignoring all the other work I did. So, no, this is just a satire parody, and they're like, we think it's postmodern brilliance. I'm like, no. You know, so I said, I've got to put this in the comics somewhere. So I told Garth, I'm going to throw that in there. And I've taken it away from, like, don't blame Garth for Shitfoot. It's all me. So, and it's just a loving little poke, you know, at Sweet Tooth.
It's funny though with Easter eggs, you've got to be careful with what you do, or the editor's going to come along and scrub things out. Like in the first issue of Hitman, there was a room and I just filled it full of movie posters, including things like Jaws and whatnot, some of my favorite movies. And they just said, you've just got to get rid of all the Jaws posters because we might get sued.
And DC actually has a legal department to look at that stuff. So
Yeah.
normally it's out there before you know.
Yeah.
I had a DC thing where I created, like, just to have something on a shirt and a hat instead of just like this. So I made up a fake band called Kathleen Turner Overdrive. And I just said they were like it was like a great feminist power trio, you know? So I did like a Kathleen Turner face with like KTO around it, you know? And they made me scrub it out. They were like in a Fables issue. It's just some guy picks up the Page Sisters and he's wearing the KTO thing. And they're like, is that a real band? We can't have that. I'm like, no, it's a made up band. Like, but it still looks like Kathleen Turner. So I just kind of like scribbled through it until it was unrecognizable.
Yeah.
John, any Easter eggs you like sneaking in?
I don't know. Yeah, I do stick them in occasionally. I guess the latest one I did, I'm doing a book for Marvel called Yondu.
That's awesome. That's
that
awesome.
dude from the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's flying around space and he's got all his pizza boxes, and it's I put the intergalactic pizza, the Beastie Best pizza, because I love the Beastie Boys. So I wanted my intergalactic Beastie Boys thing. And I put that in there, and it just kept putting it in on all the pizza boxes, so hopefully one of them will get through. Hopefully one will get through.
I'm keeping fingers crossed.
Well, yeah, who
You had
knows?
all the
But, you know,
birds.
pardon?
You had all the birds in All-Star Section 8, instead of the angry birds, the agnostic birds.
Oh,
the
God,
absent
yeah. I'd forgotten about
If you
that.
could get away with that, I'm
I
hoping
guess,
intergalactic pizza.
yeah, they did let us. Yeah, but that was DC. Yeah, that makes no sense at all. So
Yeah,
DC
would
would
be
be.
harder than
You would have thought, but no, Marvel are all like Disney now. So
Oh, that's right.
You got a much bigger umbrella.
yeah. So they're going to be tough on that stuff. No, but yeah, I mean that's the thing with Hitman and Section 8 and things like that. Got away with so much crap. But I don't, you know, and I look back on it now, and certainly I'm speaking for myself here, I think there's so much stuff that we got away with that you just wouldn't now. Hitman wouldn't really be the same thing if it came out now.
Yeah, you wouldn't even try to do it now.
I guess not, which is sad.
But that's the thing, is that when a book like that comes out, people respond to it because it's so much fun. It's like when the creators are having fun,
Right.
it shows through on the books.
So we
People buy the book.
continually had poor Pete Tomasi and Dan Rast. We're sort of going, do we really have to have a bartender from hell who screams Beethoven as in the comic? That it doesn't fit. It just doesn't make any sense. Why? God, he's like, because I want it there. It's just like, all right. But of course, it did work.
Yeah, and that's good on him because he's always fought for his stuff, his ideas.
Sure.
You know, when the editor's like, I used to get notes, things like, can we have a cuter dress on her? And I'm like,
What?
I needed to draw this in like 2 weeks to get it in time. And it's like, is that really the editorial note that I need? So
Cuter
Garth
dress.
helped me. You know, it's just,
Yes.
there's no Garth to help you when I'm working with other writers.
When you're
I'll just call him up anyway.
Just
take
put a book on.
just contact this company.
Yeah.
Tell them to leave me alone and let me draw.
It's like the bat phone, but the Garth phone. Just grab it.
When you talk about creators having the time of their lives, what's projects that you guys have been attached to that you absolutely just had the time of your life doing?
I think that, you know,
All of them.
you know, definitely not. Christ, some books have been
We already
just,
talked about Streets, right?
yeah, you like that, and like every other painted book before that, but I guess, I really am enjoying Yondu at the moment, I gotta say. That's a real fun, I mean, it's a neo sort of Western in space and the seedy underside of the Marvel Universe. So it's like basically me. That's what I draw. I mean, I remember saying to him, if I could draw a book that was called Dirty Alleys, sorry, but it really was about dirty alleyways, nothing else, not pornographic at all. That would be my perfect book, because that's what I draw best.
You draw
Like
them
thugs
very well.
beating the shit out of each other in dirty alleys.
It's like some real
that's
Will
my
Eisner
thing.
looking stuff.
Yeah, you know,
I was-
only like filthier. And
I had to
uglier.
draw an alley scene in Sixpack and Dogwelder.
Oh, yeah.
I was jealous of your alley scenes from all. It's like,
I give good alley. That is true. That is true. You got guys like Charles Bass, who's famous for trees, and then you got somebody else who's famous for something else, and I'm famous for alleys. Nice.
And carrot sticks.
And what?
And carrot sticks.
Oh, sure. Carrots and vomit. Yes.
Cannot go wrong.
Yeah, carrots and vomit. You know, but that's all part and parcel of a dirty alley. Big pile of vomit in the corner.
Hand in hand.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. It's just me.
Russ?
I can't even think, like, I've enjoyed almost everything I've worked on, but there are different things. It's like the war stories with Garth were like, again, that was the Night Witches, that was like personal stuff for him. I got more involved in that, I guess. So I guess even though it was harder, that's the stuff I look back on as more rewarding because it was done. The boys stuff too, some of the boys issues I feel like, at least if I just disappear tomorrow, at least that'd be like a footnote in comics history was a couple of those issues of boys. Like,
When
you know,
You're being a bit harsh on yourself.
I thought you did an incredible job, man. You did. And I look at, Jimmy's Bastards is fun and hysterical. And I finally got my hands on the entirety of the Anna story because you pointed me towards.
yeah, they just put it out as a collection, Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning, and they're through the U.S.
Naval
Naval
Institute.
Institute. And it's nice to see Garth attached to something formal for that.
They connected up we did 3 different story arcs of this Russian fighter pilot named Anna Kharkova, made up but based on true stories of the Night Witches. And so it's like her story from the beginning of where she started the war and where she ended up much later. But so it's an honor to have it all together in one volume. It's really a great volume. Go buy it.
No, it's great. I got 2 copies. It's wonderful. It's great stuff. How is Dead Eyes going?
It's going very, now, thank God, it's all the, I don't know if anybody knows, but I was doing a book called Something last year with Derek, I can't say the name because legally I'm not allowed to.
Such a great
And I was doing a book for Image with Jerry Duggan, and it was called One Thing. And then something happened that I can't talk about, and we had to take a year out to sort out all that stuff that happened.
But then, Kevin, you're back on track.
So yeah, so it's back out as of last week, I think, was it, or
Yes.
the week before?
The
or
week
something?
before. The week before.
New York
Last
Comic-Con.
week's
didn't it?
week, but
Yeah.
2
So-
weeks ago picked it up, and it just felt just happy.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to see it back on the shelf, and you know, it was a year of sort of unpleasantness, really, while that got itself sorted out.
But
So
you
it's
did have the opportunity to do an issue of X-Men, of Uncanny X-Men. and from
sure.
what I understand,
Marvel have been very good to me in the interim. I had 5 months where I had no work, and because I was sort of going, what's going on? Can I get back to it yet? And it was just like, well, maybe next week, or maybe next. And it went on for 5 months, and eventually I said to Jerry, I need some money. I really do need to earn some money. Can you ask them in Marvel to get me some work? And Jerry, God bless him, got me a whole crap load of work at Marvel, including Yondu, I think.
Like 5 covers?
Maybe more. I did 4 for
Marvel?
did 4 for Death's Head, which was 4 issues, so I did
Okay.
those 4.
There
And
was
then
the comedy issue that came out like
Yeah,
this past
crazy.
month.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I did the big one for me was Conan. I did a Conan cover for Roy Thomas is back writing Conan, and I got to do a cover for it. It was like, and of course I froze up and made a mess of it because it was like so much pressure. Had to do it. I've always wanted to draw Conan anyway. The fact that it was a cover for Roy Thomas returning to
That's incredible.
it's just like, it was just too much pressure, man. It was just too much pressure. I made a complete farce of it. But, you know, whatever. So
So you're gonna have, what, 5 issues of Dead Eyes, you'll have Yondu, and then more Dead Eyes?
Yeah, more Dead Eyes. It's a 4-issue arc, the first arc, and then we do two months of skip month. The trade comes out, and then it's back on the next one. But I'm halfway through issue 5.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, so when they pulled the plug on us, I was halfway through issue 5. So it was, yeah.
Well, it's good to have
So
it
it's back, yeah. I mean, thank God.
and-
And you know, some people say the new name's better, so I still
Yeah.
haven't quite adjusted to the new name yet, but.
And a call back to before, but I'm 100% honestly, there's some beautiful fucking alleys in that stuff.
Really?
I love alleys. I love alleys.
It's like what, the 5th and 6th page, it's the flashback, Dead Eyes in action, you've got the long brick road, and a lot of it's in shadow, but it just looked like.
Well, thank you very much.
That was beautiful.
You're very
Yeah.
kind.
Shadow work.
Admittedly, I have been busting my hump on this stuff, and I mean, when I talk about doing 2.5 books a month, back in the old days, I was maybe doing maybe managing to get maybe 1.5 pages a week done. When I was I was ultra slow, because I was just like, this has got to be the book.
Yeah.
And it was I
Oh,
was
yeah.
spending far too long on it. It killed me. But
Every now and then you gotta do that.
Sure.
I mean, I know, you try to get like to be a page a day is like kind of.
that would be the goal.
And
Yeah.
then I've been as high as like 4 pages a day a couple of times.
Wow.
But you were high.
No, well, the best, actually, one of the best jobs I ever had, I did have to drink for it, because I was supposed to make it look like a 14-year-old. It was an old man job where Cliff, his son, was drawing a 7-page book.
I remember that.
And it's called The Cannibal Kid with K's.
Yeah.
And so I said, should I draw it with my left hand?
Mhm.
He said, no, I'll just drink like half a bottle of Jack Daniels and just start drawing.
Hey.
And you do things like where
That sounds like a coping mechanism.
you have to write the, and I did the lettering too, so I got paid for pencils, inks, and letters on it. It's like the best
Wow.
I've ever been paid for a job. And
Yeah, and you were
draw
half
the,
cut.
yeah, draw the word balloons before you put the lettering in, so it's like.
Oh, yeah.
And then somehow
Oh, wow.
put an arrow going to the wrong panel kind of thing. It's like, no, you gotta go this way. It was a really fun job, actually. So.
Do you
That's
have
great.
anything coming out, Russ?
Actually, I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about it yet. That's the,
Don't get in trouble.
it's nothing like really involved in like major comics. It's just since I finished Jimmy's Bastards, I took a break from comics. I've done a couple of some small things for Ahoy. I love working for Ahoy.
Yeah,
They're a
you
great
have a
outfit.
panel with them tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to be at their Ahoy panel tomorrow. And did some Edgar Allan Poe stuff. I did a Wrong Earth prequel kind of thing for a free comic book day.
Okay.
But I've been waiting for this project that's more like to scrub my soul from working with Garth for so many years. Like good for my karma. Nah, just. But no, it's like humanitarian effort. There's this chef, Chef Jose Andre, who does disaster relief.
Yeah, he does a lot of disaster relief.
Great works around the world, and I'm going to help work on a graphic novel of some of his stories with Steve Orlando.
Wow.
That's
So
awesome.
it's not official yet, but it'll be starting next year. But I've waited a year for it. So again, like, it's kind of a killer when you don't have the regular paycheck. You know, you're used to being like a kind of a guy who humps
Steady
it out
income.
every week. You just get a comic done every month, and then to have nothing for a while. You know, I've been doing more conventions and enjoying it, and meeting people and accepting more conventions and traveling a bit. So, yeah, please grab them next. But yeah, so that'll be my next thing, like big thing. But I'll probably do some small stuff in between.
That sounds phenomenal, man.
Well, something
Yeah.
good for the world, I hope. I don't know.
Kind of balance the karma scale.
Honestly, Jimmy's Bastards, I love it, but there was a point in it when it's humorous, but it's got some darkness in it that really kind of like left me in a bad place. So. And then you have to hope that it gets made into a movie or something, because it's like, oh, this is great, because I own this one, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, none of us want that movie made of our properties, do we? That would be, you know, selling out to the man or something.
oh yeah,
Yes, we don't want
Please
that.
take
You make
Please don't give us
an
the big man money.
you make an interesting point. Are there characters that draw you in emotionally when you're drawing them? Like you sort of invested in their story as you're putting them on you know, ink the paper, as you will.
For me, almost all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've got any attachment to the story, and if it's a good story and a well-written character, then you're going to sort of put. I mean, the Dead Eyes thing, the characters in that, the two main sort of our lead characters. It's a really human story, and they're really lovely people, and I just wanted, you know. It's just one of those things where you want to be their friends.
Yeah.
You know, it was the same with Hitman. I just wanted to go to Noonan's and have a drink with the guys at Noonan's all the time because they were such, obviously scary, but really nice characters. You know, that you
get
thought
past
that
all
would
the
be.
hired killers,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they're
exactly.
wonderful
Yeah,
hired
but
killers.
you know, you would go to the bar with Tommy and knock back a couple. That would be
Absolutely.
freaking cracking. So
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll go down a nerdy road here. So people play D&D or role-playing games. You get attached to your character, and then something happens to them, they die, and you feel like you lost a friend.
Sure.
You know, you might have to draw somebody that you care about dying in a comic book, like somebody you've been drawing for a few years, and
They work with Garth.
Yeah, exactly.
Newsflash, they all die.
You know, and then so I've read a lot of comic books where you see people lying dead, and there's just like a lot of emotion there, a lot of hurt. It's just like, you know, the last scene in Hitman, for example, is a
Oh,
painful one.
when I got this, I always read the scripts on the toilet.
Yeah.
When I got the scripts through from Garth, when they came through the fax machine. And the good old days.
Sorry.
And I was weeping openly at the end of Hitman on the toilet, which is a really bad look.
I think it was The Boys 7.
I drew that scene in The Boys, actually.
Did you?
Of
Me weeping?
Huey weeping on the toilet.
Oh yeah. I'll wait.
I think it was
Again,
the
we
Boys
work with
70 though, and
Yeah.
and they find the bomb, and Frenchie just puts a hand on the female and Jitten from I love
that's
you from the first. Was it 69? It was 69.
8, 68 or no 69. You're right, 69.
That was. There's a few times I think I've really just like yelled at a book, just yelled out loud at a book, and I just got to that page and just yelled no. I was in the car, top of my lungs, and you turn the page, and it is what it is. And I read
Spoiler
Hitman every
alert.
6 months, and I cry like a little one, but just.
Yeah, no, well, you get attached to all the characters, you know. But I love those two in particular. But it's weird for me. The one that affected me more was MM. Because it's just a line that Butcher says when he's like, he's talking about, you're the best friend I could have had, you know. Anyone could ever have. And he's like, but I ain't happy friends. But it was just like, how could you do that, Billy? You know, so.
For both of you, I want to plug this as best I can. What character would you want to work on, and what writer or inker, what art team would you want to work with that you haven't had the opportunity to work with? I know both of you are big Spider-Man fans. John, you've had More of your time with Spider-Man was spent sad. 3 good issues and then 5 Confederacy of Dunces issues.
I don't like to talk about that.
No, I got you.
Did the 1,000.
Yeah, that was a good
The 3
That was
pleasant issues and then the 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not
Yeah.
so pleasant. Yeah, God, Russ, do you want to go first?
Well, Spider-Man, I mean, I probably should go for that at some point, but I know drawing Spider-Man would take me like a week a panel, to get exactly right, so
Sure.
I would either like choke and never get it done, or just have to just let it go. That's the thing about our job is you have to just, it's 6 drawings for each page at least, like 6 panels, and so you can't draw the whole book at once. You have to draw it 1 panel at a time, 1 page at a time. Right. So I would probably, maybe Spider-Man. I'd love to get back on Batman again from something like, I'll go for the big ones, right?
Well, sure.
Spider-Man, Batman, and Swamp Thing. Those are like the ones I would do. But more like I'd just rather do something of my own and get it out there, just for fun. But for of the characters people know, those are the 3 I would go back to.
Yeah.
Monsters of any kind.
7 minutes. So
I'm a total Marvel Z-list character nerd, so any of the Marvel horror books I would love, Dracula or Morbius or Werewolf by Night. I love all that crap, and just like Iron Fist, and we were talking about a few. The Jack of Hearts, for some reason, I'd really like to really punish myself by having to draw the Jack of Hearts. I was talking at breakfast with a couple of guys about this and saying, yeah, I'd really like to draw the Jack of Hearts, even though I know that I would hate every minute of it because of that costume. I mean, only a sadist would design that. George Perez.
Nicest man in comics.
Yeah,
Like
but a
hands down.
sadist. I mean, obviously, it's just like, the front, the nice front, and inside a bubbling, seething sadist.
Everyone will have to draw this costume for the rest of their lives.
lives.
This costume's never changed in comics.
No, never changes. Yeah. So weird shit like that.
I hear you talk about the horror stuff, and I know that the breakfast cereal story that we just want Russ to make. That would.
I just did that interview about Frankenstein Friday.
Yeah,
I do this thing on Facebook. Every Friday I draw Frankenstein. It started as a joke, and now it's kind of like a life sentence. So for 4 years, every Friday I draw Frankenstein, some kind of Frankenstein. So
I meant to
You
bust
some
this out
kind
earlier.
of Frankenstein.
you run out of Karloff
cool.
imagery, and you kind of do whatever then. So
So
you
it's
do
been
the
happening
bride.
time.
Oh, look, there's Frankenstein on a
Oh,
bum.
that's lovely.
Our friend Ari, and it's her birthday today. I asked her to
happy
do some
birthday.
Frankenstein cookies for us. I sent her some stuff of what Russ had done, and she put it on a projector and did sketches of Russ's Frankenstein and Frankenberry's for these
Frankenberry,
cookies.
yeah. So Frankenberry became the one I would like the go-to one to like do something
Smelled
quick
good.
on Friday morning. And I ended up started drawing Frankenberry as like basically the Hulk,
Oh, yeah.
And then came up with a whole story around it that I was actually to the point, then I took the break from Jimmy Spasser and said, I'm going to pitch this story to Ahoy. Because I've been working with them. They do like some real humorous type stuff. And,
Yeah.
And then it turns out Mark Russell was doing Frankenberry and Crown Chocolate in his stories
Can you still tell that story with the Hoy? Can it just be separate? Can you,
Oh,
10
sure.
years
I'm
prior
sure
to
it could,
that,
but I don't want to have to compete with anything, so I'll keep it. I'll keep it to myself.
Someone beat you to the Frankenberry comic?
Yeah, I mean, who knew? Huh?
I would have never expected that.
I thought you made Frankenberry.
It's a real
I know
breakfast
nothing
cereal.
about this. It's a breakfast cereal.
It's
okay.
American. Yeah.
We don't
It's
get
American
that.
breakfast.
Yeah, okay.
There's a count too. It's made
We
of
only,
chocolate.
we only get it now at Halloween. Now it'll be out in the stores. It's like not in like regular circulation. It's a terrible cereal.
Oh, yeah, it's
But good for you.
and discontent, but that's.
Full cereal.
But yeah, I was gonna do like this whole like Count Chocula is like this aging vampire who's losing his actual immortality, so he's gotta feed people full of chocolate to get their blood sweet enough to get any nourishment from it. So he's like the mad scientist who creates the beast. He's trying to find ways to get his immortality back, so through any means necessary. So he does like the whole Frankenstein experiment out of like vegetable flesh, like through this like in this infused big pipe with strawberry liquid that makes Frankenberry,
This is sounding like an episode of Hard the Duck.
It
really is. It sounds like a Hard the Duck comic written by Steve Gerber.
could be. Dr. Bong could show up.
Sure, exactly.
Just throw in like an old one in there. Just have some ancient evil mixed in with the berry juice.
They're all in there, though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got Booberry in there too, and they're never named, so I would get away from it with General Mills. I was going to put a character and they call it General Mills.
Oh my God, angry guy. It's perfect. Just not too obvious, huh? Don't make it too obvious.
Well, we got about 3 minutes. What do you guys want to talk about that hasn't been discussed?
Oh, you just asked the questions.
Yeah.
We're not asking ourselves, or does anybody
haven't
have a
asked
question?
Yeah.
Anyone got any questions for us?
All right.
Nope.
Seeing Amanda Connor and Steve Dillon tackle the characters from the Cauldron, tackle Sixpack,
Oh, sure.
and all of them with the covers that they did for recent visiting All-Star Section 8 and then for Dogwelder. How cool was that? I mean, obviously, Steve, the timing with Steve, being able to fit him in, and at the same time, when you were writing the one issue of Judge Dredd and how you were able to use Steve in the back of that book, I mean, it's, the timing was, at the very least, you had that opportunity to both of you take that into your hands and memorialize your friend.
Mm.
But on a lighter note, seeing him do those characters, seeing Amanda have her fun with Sixpack, what kind of reactions did you get out of that? What were your reactions the first time
Well,
you saw
I mean,
those covers?
we're both fantastic artists, so it was just, you know, and Russ doing the follow-up, it was just, I was just happy that the characters were in such good hands. You know, I mean, you did a better job than I would have anyway.
Oh.
So then that's fair enough. You know, that Constantine and Silver Surfer
In the
board
space
was just,
helmet.
in the space helmet was just, I was just like, yeah, you did that better than I did. I would have done it, so, you know, it's, no, it's great. It's great. It's nice to, you know, just take a back seat and see proper professionals,
Yeah.
you know, actually do the work.
So it'd be nice. I've never seen anybody do anything with
Johnson.
my own characters. Well, yeah, he did the cover. That's right, for Jimmy's Bastards. Yeah. So, and those were great covers. I like the iconic kind of look to the first cover, especially. But
Well,
yeah,
Dave's
no.
amazing, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But no, it's the Steve Dillon thing though. Is like that was the only time I got to work with him. That was his last job, really. I mean, doing the covers for Sixpack Dogwelder. I did the last one. I did the sketch of the hand holding the little Dogwelder tinfoil guy from like Blade Runner. And so he was
Forgot that
like,
was a Blade Runner reference.
so he was just kind of like, you know, cheers for that. I owe you a pint for basically doing the pencils for that one for me. And I was like, I'll take you up on it next time or whatever. Garth and I were with him on Sunday night, that like the last we saw before that was it. So
I
just
don't
had a
want to
nice-
close out on that. I don't want to close out on that. I'll ask one last question, and of course, we missed something.
Yep.
When are the two of you working together on the book?
He says,
Yeah, who, me?
"You're Mr. Marvel all of a sudden. Let's do something."
Mr. Marvel. In my bloody dreams.
I think that would
They
be...
only got so many alleyway stories. Conan in an alleyway. You
I
know.
would do that. Let's do that.
I want to see something before the end of Baltimore. Absolutely. Let's get you guys a concept. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4:15.
Oh.
Help me in thanking these guys for their time.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Can we eat these now?
Yes, yeah. Now that we don't have high-powered microphones to speak into or
She does cakes too.